The Liberator hung silent in the darkness of space, invisible to any scanning device. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge and looked out at the dead star before him. The sun was dying. Its light had faded to a dull red, and its heat no longer reached the nearby planets. This dying star had kept humanity hidden for 5,000 years. Was tall and strong, with gray hair and a face marked by years of command. He had never set foot on Earth. His great-great-grandfather had escaped Earth's destruction and had been born on this ship, as had his father and his father before him. The Liberator was more than a ship. It was home. It was the last piece of humanity left in the galaxy. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship systems. Dr. Sarah Mitchell sat at the engineering station. She was an old woman now, nearly 130 years old. Medical technology had kept her alive so she could finish her work. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced skill. She had never left this ship. She had never breathed real air or felt real sunlight. All she had was the Liberator. "Captain," Sarah said without looking up from her work, "the main reactor is showing stress again. We need to shut down the secondary power grid for maintenance." Nodded, "Do it, we have time." But they did not have time. Everyone knew it. The ship was old, very old. It had been built 50,000 years ago with technology that humans had created before the Galactic Council destroyed Earth. The ship could not last forever. Someday soon it would break down and there would be no one to fix it. The last humans would die in the darkness. Commander David Foster came onto the bridge. He was younger then, but his face was hard and cold. David had spent his entire life studying the Galactic Council. He knew every ship in their fleet, every species under their control, every weapon they possessed. David wanted war. He had wanted war for years. "Captain," David said, and his voice was tight with anger, "we just received a message from the Deep Space Listening Station. There is activity in the outer sectors. The Council is moving ships around again." Turned to face David. "How many ships?" 17 battle cruisers moving toward the sector, David said. "The Council is expanding its control. They are taking planets that were once neutral. They are crushing anyone who resists." Felt the weight of those words. The Galactic Council had destroyed Earth because they feared humanity. They had sent their fleets across the stars and burned every human city. They had killed billions of people, but some humans had escaped. Some had hidden on remote worlds and in secret stations. For 50,000 years, humans had waited in darkness, hoping that someday they would be strong enough to return. Lieutenant Amy Johnson entered the bridge. She was young, only 25 years old. She had been born after the last time any human had left the ship. Her whole life had been the Liberator and the void of space. She was the ship's best pilot, and she was the future of humanity. "Captain," Amy said, "I am detecting a signal. It is very faint, but it is coming from the old transmission frequency, the one we planted 50,000 years ago." The bridge went silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing, stepped toward Amy's station. "Are you certain?" he asked. "Yes, Captain," Amy said. Her hands moved across the controls. "The signal is old, very old, but it is active. Someone has turned it on." Felt his heart beat faster. The signal Amy was detecting came from a beacon that had been planted on a moon near the old territories of Earth. That beacon was supposed to stay silent for all time. It was a way to tell the last humans that something had happened, that the time of hiding was over. "Decode the signal," ordered. Sarah moved quickly despite her age. Her fingers flew across her station. The signal came through the speakers. It was not words. It was a pattern of sounds and tones that told a story. The story said only one thing: Earth is free. Humans are awake. The time of return is here. Closed his eyes. He had been born knowing this moment would come. Every person on this ship had been born waiting for this moment. The moment when humanity would stop hiding and start fighting back. David said, "Get a meeting ready, all senior staff now." 20 minutes later, everyone was in the conference room. There were only 147 people on the Liberator who had high enough rank to be in this meeting. The rest of the crew worked in the engine rooms and corridors and medical bays. They all knew what was about to happen. The ship systems carried every conversation throughout the vessel. Stood at the head of the table. He was no longer just a captain. He was the leader of the last humans in the galaxy. "The beacon has been activated," said. His voice was hard and clear. "This means other humans have survived. This means we are not alone. This means we have a choice to make." David leaned forward. "The choice is simple, Captain. We go to war. We hunt down every member of the Galactic Council. We make them pay for what they did to Earth." "No," said. The word cut across the room like a blade. "Revenge will only make us like them. We will go to the galactic core, yes, but we will go to find the truth. We will find out who gave the order to destroy Earth. We will find evidence. We will make the Council answer for genocide." Amy looked uncertain. "Captain, we have been hidden for 50,000 years. We have no allies. The Council has thousands of ships. How can we succeed?" "We will not succeed alone," said. "The beacon tells us that other humans are awake. We will find them. We will unite them. And then we will show the galaxy that humanity is not dead. We are alive. We are coming home." Sarah nodded slowly. "The ship is old, Captain, but it will hold together for one more mission. It will hold together long enough to see this through." Looked at each of them. These were the last leaders of humanity. These were the people who would take the first steps toward bringing their species back from extinction. "Then we are agreed," said. "The Liberator breaks its silence. We leave this place. We journey to the galactic core. We bring humanity home, and we make the Galactic Council answer for what they have done." The meeting ended. Returned to the bridge. He stood before the viewing screen and looked out at the dying star. This star would fade to nothing, but humanity would not fade. Humanity would burn brighter than 1,000 stars. He opened a channel to the entire ship. His voice echoed through every corridor, every room, every chamber. "This is Captain Hayes," he said. "Today we end our exile. Today we return. Today the reckoning begins." The Liberator's engines roared to life. The great ship turned away from the dying star and began to move. It moved toward the galactic core. It moved toward destiny. It moved toward war. The Liberator dropped from hyperspace above Prime and saw the graveyard. The planet was dead. Its surface was covered in ash and broken rock. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived here. The sky was dark, and the sun above it was dying just like the one they had left behind. 50,000 years ago, Prime had been a human colony. 40,000 people had lived on this world. They had built cities and farms and centers of learning. They had been building a new Earth away from Earth. And then the Galactic Council had come. Their ships had burned the cities to nothing. Stood in the shuttle bay with Dr. Sarah Mitchell and Commander David Foster. They were suited up and ready to descend to the surface. Looked at the weapons he carried. A plasma rifle. A blade that could cut through most metals. These tools had been made by human hands 50,000 years ago, and they still worked perfectly. "Team, we are landing in Sector 7, Amy said through the communication system. She was in the shuttle above them, preparing for descent. No signs of Council ships in orbit. No active weapons. This place is completely abandoned." "Good," said. "Then let's see what the Council left behind." The shuttle touched down on cracked ground. Red dust covered everything. As they stepped outside, could see the remains of buildings in the distance. Broken towers, shattered walls. The ruins of human civilization burned to ash 50,000 years ago. They walked across the dead ground for an hour. Sarah led the way, using her scanner to detect anything unusual. David watched the sky, always expecting attack. Simply looked at the ruins and thought about all the people who had died here. Sarah stopped suddenly. "There is something here," she said. "Underground, something artificial, something built to last." They found the entrance hidden beneath collapsed stone. It was sealed shut but could see the human markings. Someone had carved symbols here. Someone had left a message. It said, "Sanctuary, hope lives below." David used explosives to clear the entrance. They descended into darkness. The walls were metal, not stone. This was not a building. This was a shelter, a bunker built to protect people from the death that came from above. Inside, they found more doors, more seals, more barriers. Finally, Sarah opened the last lock and they stepped into a vast underground cavern. Chambers stretched out before them, chambers built into the rock itself. And in those chambers there were people. Thousands of people floated in suspension pods. Their eyes were closed. Their breathing was slow. They had been sleeping for 50,000 years, waiting for someone to wake them. Sarah and David stood frozen but moved forward. He walked past row after row of suspended humans. He saw men and women. He saw children frozen in time. He saw the future of his species suspended in these machines. "Wake them," said. "Start with the oldest. Start with whoever was in charge here." It took hours to bring the first person back to consciousness. The woman's eyes opened slowly. Her name was Victoria. She was ancient, older than any human had ever seen. When she finally could speak, her voice was like broken glass. "We are safe," she asked. "You are safe," said. "The war is over. The council has not returned." Victoria closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. "Then they are truly gone. Earth is gone. All of them are gone." "Tell me what happened," said. Victoria's story took hours to tell. The Galactic Council had feared humanity because humans were different from every other species. Humans learned quickly. Humans could fight in ways that no other species could understand. Humans did not fear death the way other species feared it. To the Council, humanity was a plague that needed to be eliminated before it could spread. So the Council had sent its fleets. The fleets had come from across the galaxy. They had burned Earth. They had attacked every human colony, but some humans had escaped. Some had been far enough away that they managed to flee before the Council ships arrived. "We built these shelters," Victoria said. "We sent ships to every human colony we could reach. We saved as many people as we could, but we could not save everyone. We could not save Earth." Felt anger burn in his chest. The Council had not feared humans because of what they had done. The Council had feared humans because of what humans could do. The Council was afraid of potential. "How many survivors are there?" asked. "How many humans are still hidden in places like this?" Victoria looked at him with eyes that had seen 50,000 years pass. "There are 7 other shelters like this one. 7 other worlds where humans sleep. If we wake them all, we could have millions of people. Enough to make the Council take notice. Enough to make them answer for what they did." David stepped forward. "Then we will wake them. We will gather every human that survived, and we will go to war." But shook his head. "No, we will wake them. We will unite them. We will prepare them. But this is not about revenge. This is about restoration. The Council tried to erase humanity. We will show them that humanity cannot be erased." They brought Victoria to the Liberator. They showed her the ship and the crew. They showed her everything that had survived. Victoria stood on the bridge and looked at the stars through the viewing screen. "We will make them answer," Victoria said. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Not for revenge, but for justice. The dead deserve justice." Nodded. "Then we know what we must do. We gather every human. We unite them. And when we are ready, we go to the galactic core. We go to the Council. We go to the source of the darkness that destroyed our world." Sarah began calculating the route to the next shelter. David began preparing weapons and strategies. Amy the ship for the next jump, and stood with Victoria and looked out at the stars. "How long?" Victoria asked. "How long until what?" said. "How long until the Council learns that we are coming? How long until they realize they failed to kill us all?" Smiled without joy. "They will learn soon enough. And when they do, they will understand something that their fear has kept them from knowing for 50,000 years. They will understand that destroying a species is impossible when that species is willing to wait in darkness and return when the time is right. The Liberator left Prime behind, but it did not leave alone. As it jumped to hyperspace, signals went out to the other hidden shelters, messages that said one thing: humanity is awake. Humanity is coming. Humanity is coming home. The dead world of Prime faded into darkness, but the hope it had protected for 50,000 years was alive now. That hope was moving across space. That hope was heading toward the galactic core. That hope was heading toward the reckoning. The next 6 months were months of movement and awakening. The Liberator traveled from shelter to shelter, and at each one, thousands of humans came back to consciousness. They opened their eyes in machines that had kept them alive for 50,000 years. They saw the sky of their new worlds. They learned that Earth was gone. They learned that they had to be strong. At Sanctuary, they found. He was a military commander who had spent his entire life training humans for a war that had to come, had been born in the shelter. He had trained in the simulator rooms. He had watched holographic battles of humans fighting against the Council forces. He had spent his life preparing for a day when humans would need to be warriors again. When met, he stood tall and straight. His eyes were clear and hard. He had been waiting his whole life for this moment. Captain said, "I have trained 15,000 soldiers. They are ready to fight. They are ready to die. When do we go to war?" Looked at and saw the hunger for battle. First we gather, then we prepare, then we decide about war. At Station, they found Dr. Rachel Adams. She was a scientist who had spent 50,000 years studying human genetics. Her whole life had been about ensuring that human DNA stayed strong and pure. She had used the technology of the ancients to prevent human weakness from spreading through the population. "We are still human," Rachel told. "We have not changed. We are the same people who built the first cities on Earth. We are the same people who traveled across the stars. The Council thought they could change us by making us hide. They were wrong." One by one, the shelters gave up their people. The Liberator did not stay long at any location. Knew that the Council's sensors might notice unusual activity. He knew that hiding 7 million humans was becoming harder every day. The gathering point was a station hidden in the asteroid field near the outer edge of the inhabited galaxy. Called it Unity Station. Here, all the humans who had been awakened came together for the first time in 50,000 years. They came in old transport ships and military vessels that had been preserved in the shelters. They came in groups of hundreds and thousands. They came with hope and anger and the weight of 5,000 years of isolation on their shoulders. Victoria stood on the observation deck of the Liberator. They watched the ships arrive. "Do you see them?" Victoria said. "Do you understand what this means? Humanity is not dead. Humanity is returning." "Yes," said. "Now we must decide what to do with this return." David Foster wanted to launch attacks immediately. He wanted to strike at Council targets and destroy their military presence in the outer systems, but disagreed. Believed they should gather all their forces first, should prepare, should make sure every human was trained and ready. "We have been hiding for 50,000 years," said during the Council meeting. "The Council has become complacent. They believe we are dead. This is our advantage. If we attack now before we are fully prepared, we will waste lives." Rachel Adams spoke next. "Our people need time to understand what has happened. They were asleep. Now they are awake. They are grieving for Earth. They are angry. We cannot send them to war until they understand why they are fighting." Listen to all of them. He understood their points, but he knew one thing that they did not. The Council was beginning to notice that something strange was happening. Ships were moving to Prime. Ships were being sent to investigate activity in the outer sectors. The time of complete hiding was ending. Made a choice. He would meet with the Council directly. He would tell them the truth. He would tell them that humanity had returned. This decision shocked everyone. David wanted to stop him, wanted to prepare defenses, but was the captain and his word was final. The message went out on the council's official channels. It was addressed to the council itself. The message was clear and direct. It said, "This is Hayes, captain of the Human Liberator. I represent 7 million humans who have survived your attempt at genocide. We demand that you meet with us. We demand that you answer for what you have done. We are coming to the galactic core. We are coming for justice." The response came in 3 days. The council's ambassador, an ancient alien named, requested a meeting, was a being of pure logic. He believed that all problems could be solved through discussion. This made him dangerous in a different way than a warrior would be dangerous. Met with on a neutral station, the ambassador looked at with eyes that had no emotion. Behind there were guards. The guards watched with weapons ready. "You claim to represent humans," said. His voice was like the sound of metal grinding on metal. "This is not possible. We destroyed humanity 50,000 years ago. We scanned all the human worlds. We found no survivors." "You did not scan deep enough," said. "You did not look in the shelters we built beneath the surface. You did not expect humans to hide. You expected us to fight and die. We were smarter than that." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "This is fascinating. Your species has hidden for 50,000 years and now emerges to make demands. What makes you believe you have any power to make demands?" "Because," said, "we have 7 million soldiers, we have ships, we have weapons that are 50,000 years old but still work better than anything you have built. And we have something else. We have nothing to lose. We are already dead in the eyes of your people. You killed us 50,000 years ago. We are the living dead, and the living dead are very dangerous." Reported back to the council. The council's response was swift and brutal. They sent a massive military force toward Unity Station. They sent 50 capital ships and 200 smaller vessels. They sent an army that could destroy planets. But was ready. He had known this would happen. He had been preparing for this moment since the Liberator first broke its silence. The human fleet gathered at the edge of space. The ships they had found in the shelters were old, but they were well built. The crews were inexperienced, but they were determined. They stood ready to face the force that had destroyed their world 50,000 years ago. Stood on the bridge of the Liberator and looked at his fleet. Sarah stood beside him. David stood ready to give orders. Amy was in her pilot seat, hands steady. Victoria stood in the back, watching the stars. "This is the moment," said to his crew. "From this point forward, everything changes. The Galactic Council believes we are no threat. They believe we are inferior. They believe we will break before their weapons. We will show them they are wrong. We will show them that humanity cannot be destroyed. We will show them the cost of trying to erase us from existence." The human ships moved forward. They moved toward the Council fleet. They moved toward battle. They moved toward the future of their species. And in the darkness of space, 2 forces prepared to collide. One force that had ruled the galaxy with fear. One force that had survived 50,000 years hidden in darkness. One force was about to learn that destroying a species is not the same as killing a species. One force was about to learn what it meant to face an enemy that has nothing left to lose. The battle began with weapons, fire so intense that it turned the void of space into a burning storm. The Council ships fired first. Their weapons were more advanced. Their ships were bigger. They had defeated every enemy the galaxy had ever thrown at them. They expected this battle to end quickly. But they did not know humans. Led the human fighter wings in patterns that no Council commander had ever seen before. His pilots were willing to take damage that would destroy normal soldiers. They were willing to die if it meant killing an enemy ship. The Council commanders understood tactics, but they did not understand sacrifice. David Foster coordinated the main battle fleet. He ordered ships into positions that seemed suicidal. He sent old vessels against new ones. The Council commanders thought he was mad, but David was not mad. He was brilliant. Every order he gave was designed to put the enemy in a position where their superior weapons could not be used effectively. The Liberator burned through space at the center of the human fleet, commanded from the bridge. He saw ships explode. He saw his people die. He saw the cost of resurrection. But he also saw the Council fleet beginning to break apart. Sarah worked at her station and her fingers flew across the controls. She had access to the ancient computers of the human fleet. Those computers still held the blueprints of every Council ship. Those blueprints showed the weaknesses that the Council had never fixed in 50,000 years. Sarah sent signals to the human ships. She told them where to shoot. She told them which shields would fail first. She turned ancient knowledge into modern weapons. Amy was not in the pilot seat anymore. She was in a fighter leading a squad of human pilots directly at a Council capital ship. Her squadron was outnumbered 5-1, but her pilots did not retreat. They fired at the ship's power systems. They disabled the weapon controls. And when the ship began to list, they broke formation and scattered before the explosion consumed them. The hours passed, the battle raged, human ships fell, Council ships fell. The void became filled with wreckage and fire, but something strange was happening. The Council was losing. The Council commander was a being named Vex. Vex was one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Vex had fought in 1,000 wars. Vex had never lost a battle. Vex commanded from a massive ship that was larger than small planets. The ship was called the Eternal, and it was the flagship of the Galactic Council. Vex watched the battle and realized for the first time in his existence that he was going to lose. The humans were not retreating. They were not breaking. They were not running. They were doing something worse. They were fighting. David Foster saw his opportunity. He gathered the largest remaining human ships and led them directly at the Eternal. It was a suicide run. Everyone on the bridge knew it. They would probably not survive the attack, but they did it anyway. Took the Liberator into the battle himself. He could have stayed on the bridge and commanded from safety, but he was human. Humans did not watch from safety while others died. He piloted the Liberator toward the Eternal like a spear aimed at the heart of the Council itself. The Liberator's weapons fired. They fired again. They kept firing. The Eternal's shields began to fail. Sarah had found the weakness. Sarah had sent the information, and the Liberator exploited that weakness. The Eternal's main reactor began to destabilize. Vex realized what was happening. His ship was dying. The most powerful warship in the galaxy was being destroyed by humans. Humans. The species the Council had tried to erase. David Foster led one final assault. The human ships crashed into the Eternal's hull. Some of them exploded. Some of them tore holes in the great ship. David's ship was the last one to strike. David's ship carried the most powerful weapon the humans had. It hit the Eternal's core, and the flagship of the Galactic Council exploded into an expanding ball of energy and light. The Council fleet saw the Eternal die. The Council fleet saw their commander destroyed. The Council fleet began to break apart. Ships retreated. Ships tried to escape. Ships that had been hunting humans for 50,000 years now ran from them. The human fleet pursued them for a time, then called them back. There was no need for total annihilation. There was no need for revenge beyond what had already been done. Counted the losses. 3,000 human ships had been destroyed. 40,000 human soldiers had been killed. Victoria wept when she heard the numbers. So many young people. So many people who had just woken from their sleep and immediately had to die. But the Council fleet was broken. 30 of their capital ships had been destroyed. 200 smaller vessels had been lost. The Council's military power was shattered. Took the Liberator to the galactic core. The seat of the Council was on a world called Prime. Prime was a world that had been built by every species in the galaxy. It was a monument to their power and unity. Landed in the center of Prime. He brought Sarah, Victoria, Rachel, and a small group of human soldiers. They walked through corridors that had been built 100,000 years ago. They walked past statues of alien leaders. They walked toward the Chamber of Council. The council members were waiting. They were not prepared to fight. They were not prepared to resist. They were ancient beings who had never imagined that humans would return. They were ancient beings who had thought their problem was solved 50,000 years ago. Entered the chamber and looked at the council. All the rage he had felt for 50,000 years was present in that moment, but he did not let it control him. The Galactic Council destroyed Earth, said. His voice was steady and clear. The council killed billions of humans. The council tried to erase an entire species from existence. This was genocide. This was evil, and the council will answer for it. The council members said nothing. They had no defense. They had no excuse. They had simply decided that humanity was a threat, and they had acted on that belief. Made a decision in that moment. It was a decision that would define humanity for the next 1,000 years. It was a decision that would determine whether humans would become like the council or become something better. We will not destroy you, said. We will not commit genocide against your species. We will not become the thing we hate, but we will change this galaxy, and you will live to see that change. The council members stared at him in disbelief. They had expected death. They had expected slaughter, but chose something different. Chose to let them live and watch as everything they had built fell apart around them. 3 years after the battle, the galaxy had changed completely. The old order was gone. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was not the same. It was smaller now. It was weaker. Most importantly, it had learned that it was not invincible. Humans now held a permanent seat on the council, had been offered the position of first human ambassador, but he refused. Instead, he chose Sarah Mitchell. Sarah was old and tired, but she was wise. She had kept the Liberator running for 5,000 years. She would keep the galaxy running now. Sarah sat in the council chamber and represented humanity's interests. She spoke for the dead. She spoke for Earth. She demanded that the history books be rewritten. She demanded that the truth about Earth's destruction be recorded in the galactic archives. She demanded that every species in the galaxy know what the council had done. The old council members who had given the order to destroy Earth were prosecuted. They were found guilty. They were sentenced to imprisonment for the rest of their lives. They would live in a prison on a world with no beauty, and they would have time to think about the billions of people they had murdered. Returned to the military. He trained human soldiers to defend human worlds, but he also taught them something that the old human armies had learned. Strength is not about conquest. Strength is about protection. Humans would use their power to defend the weak, not to dominate them. Rachel Adams became the head of the new Human Science Council. She worked with scientists from every species to build technologies that would benefit the entire galaxy. The barriers between species began to fall. Humans and aliens worked together for the first time in recorded history. Victoria lived to see the day when the first human colony was established on Earth. The planet was dead, but it could be brought back to life. Victoria was 90 years old when she set foot on Earth for the first time since she had been frozen 50,000 years before. She wept when she felt the soil beneath her feet. She wept for all the people who could not be here to see this moment. Did something different. He asked the council for permission to become a gardener. He asked to be released from military and diplomatic duty. The council granted his request, returned to Earth and began to plant seeds. He planted trees in the ruins of old cities. He planted gardens in the shadow of broken towers. He planted flowers where human blood had soaked into the ground 50,000 years ago. It was slow work. It took months and years, but gradually Earth began to live again. Amy Johnson became the commander of the new human fleet. Under her command, the fleet was not used for conquest. It was used to explore. The human ships traveled to the edges of known space. They discovered new worlds. They discovered new possibilities. Amy followed her pilot's dreams, and those dreams took them farther than any human had ever traveled. Months passed. Years passed. The memory of the war faded into history. New humans were born into a galaxy where their species was no longer hunted and hated. These new humans did not remember the darkness. They did not remember hiding in shelters. They did not remember Earth's destruction. They knew only the new world, the world of peace and cooperation. One day stood on Earth looking at a grove of trees that he had planted. The trees were growing well. Their roots were strong. Their branches reached toward the sky. Humans walked beneath those trees and felt the shade. Humans sat on benches beneath those trees and rested. Humans brought their children to play beneath those trees and taught them about the old world. Sarah came to visit. She was much older now and her time was running out. Medical technology could keep her alive, but she did not want to live forever. She wanted to see the work done, and then she wanted to rest. They walked together beneath the trees. "Do you regret it?" Sarah asked. "Do you regret choosing mercy instead of revenge?" Looked at the trees. He looked at the humans walking beneath them. He looked at the world that was slowly coming back to life. "No," he said, "I do not regret it. Revenge would have made us like them. Mercy made us better than them." Sarah nodded. "The dead will forgive us, I think. The billions of humans who died here will understand that we honored them by becoming more than the thing that tried to destroy us." They stood in silence beneath the trees. Around them, life grew. Around them, the future was being built. Around them, humanity was being reborn not as conquerors or as victims, but as something new, something better. Made a recording. He recorded a message for all future generations of humans. When the recording was finished, he sent it out into the galaxy on all communication channels. The message was simple, but it was the most important message that humanity could send. "This is Captain Hayes," the message said. "I am the one who led our people back from extinction. I am the one who stood before the Galactic Council and held their lives in my hands, and I chose to let them live. I chose mercy over vengeance. I chose to build over to destroy. We were born in the ashes of genocide. We survived in darkness for 50,000 years. We returned not as conquerors but as healers. We showed the galaxy that strength is not the power to kill. Strength is the courage to forgive. This is the true strength of humanity, not the power to destroy but the courage to rebuild, not the desire to dominate but the will to protect, not the thirst for revenge but the commitment to justice. Remember this as you look to the future. Remember that we survived because we chose hope over despair. Remember that we triumphed because we chose mercy over cruelty. Remember that we became great not because we conquered, but because we chose to be something better than our enemies. The future of humanity is in your hands now. Build with those hands. Heal with those hands. Create with those hands. And if you ever face an enemy, remember what I learned. True victory is not destroying your enemy. True victory is becoming so great that your enemy no longer wants to be your enemy. This is the message of humanity to the galaxy. This is the message that will echo across the stars for 1,000 years to come. Humanity has returned, and we are here to stay. The message spread across the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every world received it. And slowly, things began to change. Species that had been enemies for millions of years began to talk. Species that had been divided by fear began to cooperate. The galaxy was becoming something new. On Earth, beneath the growing trees, planted one final seed. He did not know what tree it would become. He did not know what it would look like when it grew. But he knew that it would grow. He knew that it would provide shade for future generations. He knew that it would live long after he was dead. And that was enough. That was everything. That was what it meant to be human, not to build monuments to yourself, not to seek eternal fame, but to plant seeds that would grow into trees that would give shade to people you would never meet. That was the true strength of humanity. That was the reason why the galaxy would remember them long after the stars themselves had faded.